Kakamega County respectively are in. Good morning, gentlemen. Karibu sana. It is a beautiful Thursday and it's good to see you. And you can see today we have a new guest, new face on the panel.
Absolutely.
Yes, and Bwana Matangi, I'm not so sure if he's still on your side or he switched, but we'll be discussing that a lot a bit later.
Yes, and he has always been, and good to have our friend Halole.
Yes.
Halole has also been our very close ally.
But do you count him as one of your
until he started getting bad ideas to bolt, but I'm sure now we have him.
Yes. Of course, we'll be discussing the politics a little bit later. There's so much happening in political circles. Raila and the president have clashed over claims that the voters register is being there's fraud in relation to the voters register. The opposition chiefs, of course, have signed a letter of intent to form a coalition. We'll be discussing NASA and that formation in a short while, as well as Bungoma and Western Kenya politics. As you can see, we have enough leaders from Western Kenya here, including the governor, and of course the claims that he may have moved or where he's sitting on the fence somewhere. We'll be discussing that later on. Let's now take a look at other headlines. But before we do that, Bwana Governor, there's something you wanted to say about the doctor strike. Are you still able to...
I wanted to say, I was responding to what Honorable Chris had said, that one, we must have confidence in our institutions, because the moment you defy, say, a court order or a court ruling, and then you are sending wrong signals, then we are going to end up in a state of anarchy. So we must, what I wanted to say is that we must be able to respect institutions that are there, because you see, my Honorable was saying the judge was doubting, whether the judge made the right judgment, and also the Senate, chair, the pronouncement they made yesterday, he was doubting. So I just wanted to say that let us have confidence in the institutions that we have if we want to
maybe
I'll
clarify what I meant.
Yes.
There's always a provision for appeal, and does not mean what Justice Wasilo had done was the correct thing. So it was important that the doctors must be listened to, and that's why they had moved to the Court of Appeal. So it does not necessarily mean that when a judgment has been entered into, that is the final verdict is 100%. That's the provision for appeal is always there. What I talked about the Senate is why I said I disagree with what Mashage had said, that the CBA was illegal. It was not illegal. It is something which had already been signed. And what you say that because the governors were not in the picture at that particular time, there's something called succession in government, and he was in government, that they are obligated, even if the other government had entered into a pact, the government that was coming in, it's had an obligation to fulfill about the issue of the CBA. What they should have done, Kenyans are dying, and we've been calling upon up to His Excellency the President. Much that health is devolved, but in terms of policy, it's still at the national level. When you have a crisis like this, the President cannot run away from this. He's the CEO of this country. He should renegotiate this, maybe with the doctors and the relevant committee with the COG, so that we get a solution. Kenyans are dying, so we can't run away from this.
And now we have two senators with us, and it should be noted that Senate is just the second institution to actually declare that CBA illegal. The Labor and Relations Court also said that the CBA was illegal in as far as it was not registered with that court. So only Senate yesterday said the same thing, that the CBA is illegal because the COG had not been involved. Now we do have Senators Kimani Wamatangi and Boni Halole with us, and I'd want to pick your brains on this matter.
You see, let me say this first. The pronouncements that were made yesterday were not made by Mashage. They were made by the Committee of Health. He's the vice chair, and then at that time was the acting chair of that particular committee. And the decision, if it was not a committee decision, would have been disputed by the other members who are present. They are bound by that decision, because certainly they had made deliberations, and I'm sure my colleague here and friend Mheshimiwa Wamalwa knows precisely how committees in Parliament work. Two, you see, we must acknowledge what was being said, because it's reality that since the time that CBA was signed, there has been a lot of changes. The ground has shifted. Facts and circumstances have changed. We have devolution, and you see, one issue that I've always picked with is with the doctors, especially generally, and that's something I would want them to bring out clearly to the people, is this. Remember, just right at the inception of devolution, they were the first to refuse vehemently devolved. Yeah, and health is a devolved function. And they kept on protesting, we cannot be responsible or under the county government. And so it looks like somehow, somewhere there has never been goodwill. 2 or 3 on this CBA, as pronounced by the health committee, it can be renegotiated. Yes. Nothing stops them from entering into a new pact. They can sit, they say this is what we want, and they are Kenyans, they have rights, they can be heard, they will be heard. But you see also, Mheshimiwa, yes, Kenyans are dying. Doctors have got to be spoken to. Government has a responsibility to also play part and also accede where it should accede. But negotiating with somebody who is holding a gun on your head, and this gun this time is what we have all seen. You know, let me say this for the sake of clarity. Last week I was in Kiambu, and you know, I saw a scene that almost brought tears to my eyes. You know, a lady who had been burned, severe burns, more than 80% burns, having gone to a hospital. She exhausted all the little money she had in a private facility, now had to be taken back to her home. And you know what? She was literally rotting in bed. Yeah. And that time, you've got guys on the street who are bound in the first place. And I said this the last time we had this conversation, even with Senator Halwala here. He is a doctor. Part of the doctoral training to be a medical doctor includes a whole chapter on ethics. Yes, and they are bound by those ethics to ensure that the first priority they have besides money is upholding the dignity of human life. And I believe verily in my heart that yes, doctors do have a case that they are making. It should be listened to, but the collateral, what they are holding as their negotiating chip, what they are using to shield themselves, is the human shield of human lives of innocent Kenyans who have no other options but to depend on them. And to the extent, as I said the last time here, that they are beneficiaries of those same people who are dying and suffering, because the tax those mothers and fathers and young people pay is what is used to train these doctors
and to pay their salaries.
And to pay their salaries.
Yes. Senator Wale, you're both a doctor and a senator. And so you're caught in between. Do you agree with the Health Committee of the Senate in declaring this CBA illegal?
What Senator Machake has done is trying to lie to Kenyans that a decision of a committee of the Senate is the decision of the Senate. It only becomes the decision of the Senate after that report of the committee has been debated, considered, and adopted by the Senate. I can assure you, when Machake brings this thing, we're going to throw it out because it is not worth even discussing. Who told Machake that a policy decision by the national government on a matter of health is the responsibility of the Council of Governors? Matters of policy are driven by the national government. So when a policy was taken on payment of doctors by the national government, then they signed the CBA. That is it. They must pay, and Mheshimiwa Wamatangi, stop blackmailing doctors. Doctors are more aware of that suffering that you saw only in a flash. They live with it 24/7.
I do too.
Pay doctors
all the time.
You signed for it. You have a track record of signing things and pulling out. Reminder, doctors. The second one, the laws that we negotiated for, the electoral laws in Windsor and adopted by a bipartisan joint parliamentary committee, you backed out. Even when you went into office, you signed with Mudavadi and backed out and called him Madimoni.
You're missing out on a very important point. There's a very important point that you need to tell the members of the public this one thing. And it is important, Senator.
Just to bring you back to the issue of doctor strike. I'm back. Now, the SRC has released a new grading of civil servants' salary.
Yes.
And we were wondering where the doctors fall, because we do understand they fall under these gradings, between B1 and E4.
Yes.
Where do doctors fall?
I have no idea.
Unless you read
this is an opportunity for the Sarah Serem to say, within this new structure, I have addressed the concerns of the doctors in total. But just to put it there, it doesn't help us to either support her or criticize the doctor.
Okay.
You know,
Yes,
Fred,
sorry,
what Halole is doing really is trying to mislead the country.
I beg that you steer clear of the politics for now. We'll handle politics.
Absolutely. You know, there's a lot of room for politics,
Yes.
and I would also want to precisely. I wish you had said that to him, because you are discussing about the doctor's strike. Now, facts are facts, and you can't change them. Doctors are not right now either on strike or negotiating to be paid arrears that they were never paid. You need to make that very clear. They have always been paid. Up to the last day, they were paid. What they're negotiating for is an increment. So don't mislead the country by saying that the doctors pay the doctors, but they have always been paid. The issue is they want an increment. An increment, as you know, one, as a doctor yourself, also in the businesses that you run, because you also touched your hand in business. You know how it works. In a negotiation, you compromise. You move positions to and fro until you find middle ground. So and also this assertion that you have that that this decision by the committee will only become part of the decisions of the Senate once it's adopted.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
That is true. But you also need to remind and say to the people, truthfully, as far as the Constitution is concerned, that the committees of the Senate are, as per our laws, allowed and are considered to be the Senate itself when they sit and transact business. They don't do that without. Actually, when a committee of the Senate is sitting, it is presumed it is the Senate that is sitting. Adoption of that report is only a procedure.
I wanted to clarify something.
Yes.
Because
As we finalize
I want to
on this
clarify
issue
this,
of
because
headlines, yeah.
Honorable Matangi is misleading the public. I think what is happening, the Senate committee, these are proceedings which are going on.
Yes.
As we speak right now, a report has not even been written. So whatever has been reported were some of the observations that were being made. So when the report is going to be done, you look at the merits and the demerits, observations. Until that report is out, tabled in the Senate, they have to discuss. By the way, the floor has powers to veto.
Yes.
So it does not necessarily mean the observations are there, that they find no conclusions.
Yes.
And you want to correct Honorable Matangi, because Honorable Matangi, I don't want to term him egocentric for that matter. But the issue is, as far as you are concerned, as far as you are concerned right now,
tell me anything as long as you can define it.
Yeah. As far as you're concerned, those were just observations.
Yes.
There's no report so far.
Yes.
We can only adopt a report if it has been passed by the floor of the House.
And we do understand that the Committee
and
of
who
Health
is the
of
owner
the
of
Senate
the
was
report?
actually summoned both the Ministry of Health and the
they're
Doctors'
still
Union
getting
officials.
observations.
They'll
Yeah.
appear before the committee on the 7th and 8th of this month, respectively. That's the Ministry of Health officials and the union officials as well. Now, I beg that we move on to other headlines before we get to politics, so that you can reserve a few minutes for the politics, and look at other very interesting headlines that we may miss as we talk about politics and these bigger headlines. And on page 11 of the Daily Nation, because this was an issue that had gotten some people worried, and it has to do with the age of consent. On page 11 of the Daily Nation, bid to lower age of consent to 16 fails. Proposed clause dropped in favor of changes that also protect boys. Now, after coming under fire for proposing to lower the age of consent to 16, a plan has been mooted to protect boys who have sex with girls of their age. Now, of course, I could read further. Majority Whip in the National Assembly, Katole Metito, told his colleagues on Tuesday evening the controversial plan to reduce the age of consent would be replaced with a more sensible option. Now, this was being discussed in Parliament, and the concern, it is a part of the amendments to the Sexual Offences Act, and the concern was that quite a number of young men in Kenya are serving very long jail terms because sexual defilement is the sentence that is prescribed is not less than 15 years according to law, and you cannot negotiate. So even an 18-year-old who has a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl could be sentenced to 15 years or more in jail, and quite a number of young men are actually serving such sentences in jail as we speak. Now, that was a major concern, hence the proposal to reduce the age of consent to 16, but that has been done away with. We have a member of the National Assembly. I don't know if this was discussed while you're there. Kindly clarify on the
First and foremost, that amendment it's an illegality. I want to say an illegality because in miscellaneous laws, this is whereby you bring some pieces of legislation that are not so comprehensive, maybe for purposes of consistency, conformity. For example, in the older constitution, we were talking about minister, now changing to CS.
Yes.
But the moment you bring some amendments, which have a very bigger, picture, they should not come under miscellaneous. This is something that should amend that particular section of the law, so that in line with that 118 of the Constitution, which talks about public participation can come in. When it comes to such miscellaneous laws, amendments or statute laws, we don't subject them to public participation. So first and foremost, it was very wrong, because for you to reduce the consent from 18 to 16, that is something which is so substantive that must be subjected to public participation. So it is very mischievous. And many times when you have miscellaneous laws, amendment laws or statute laws, this is whereby you see maybe government wants to sneak in some dangerous clause like this clause. Such a matter must be subjected to public participation. It must be taken to the relevant committee of the House, so that you can be able to listen more from the stakeholders. So I do agree, and this is why yesterday on the floor of the House, this aspect was being rejected. It was very mischievous, so it must be subject to public participation. Here, what is happening? Because what you are looking into this, maybe it is later on that will lead maybe turning the registration of IDs maybe from 18 to 16. So that has been that concern. It was not subject to public participation, and it's so comprehensive that it was wrong to include such an amendment when it comes to the statute law. And that's why it was actually being rejected.
Let me talk to you as a parent, and of course the concerns raised that probably young boys have been subjected to very punitive or harsh sentences, hence that proposal. Then you see the suggestion that they will come up with another sensible way of going around it. And what else can we do about the law? As it is the law. If you have sexual relations and you are over 18 with anyone below the age of 18, that's defilement, whether you're both in the same class or not.
It is, but I want to agree with what Chris is saying, that I think public participation is now very, very important to get what everybody thinks across board, because that's a very sensitive matter, and like you have said, some people may be subjected to sentences, they undergo trauma and their lives are destroyed forever. So I think it is important that it be subjected to public participation. Let's get to hear what everybody else across board is saying before it goes for amendment, because as much as the members of parliament represent the interests of people. But
do you agree with the proposal that probably, if at all it was to be taken for public, to include public participation, that it's something we could consider?
Yeah, it's something we could consider. Let people debate, let people ventilate, and then come up with a consensus. That would be a more, and it will represent what the majority think in the country.
Senator Halwale, what do you think about this matter?
When this law came into force, I remember it was the brainchild of Justice Njoki Ndongo.
Yes.
And I want to repeat what I told her during debate, that this law was attempting to legislate on morality. Legislation on morality is extremely complex. I can confirm to you as a doctor of medicine that the children who are today languishing in jail, they are not in jail because they were sued by their girlfriends. After a rich father of a girl finds that the daughter is having a relationship with a son from a poor home, the guy gets pissed off, the mother gets pissed off, they sue the little boy. But if you gave that little girl an opportunity to say, she would not sue the boyfriend. So the people suing our boys are the parents, not the girlfriends of these boys. So I want to agree with Olmetito that we need to be slightly more sensible, bring it in so that we see who in this case should be admissible as the complainant.
Yes.
Should it be the parents? Should it be both the parents and the girl? Or should it be the girl alone? If you ask me as a parent, I would rather, on such a emotive issue, it is the girl who decides and sues that I was raped, but not her parents. And I'm talking as a father of several girls.
Yes.
We're
talking about defilement here, and hence the debate about the age. So do you agree with that proposal that has been done away with? That
let me tell you, it's a fact of medicine,
yes,
and a fact of science that a 20-year-old boy has the mental age of an 18-year-old girl.
Yes.
And an 18-year-old boy has the mental age of a 16-year-old girl. Girls mature mentally faster. We need to legislate in a more smart way. I agree with Ole Metito.
Okay.
Well, Fred, one, I want to affirm that I'm a Christian, and as I speak on this, I uphold my Christian values and principles. And my view of this is that first, we have allowed our society to throw away values that we have held for so long, that have helped us move from where we are, we have been to where we are. And you know, this westernization thing that came into our minds and into our way of living, and we threw away African cultures that have helped us, and Christian values that have held not only Christian, even Muslim and other religions. And you find that this thing has swept away all the things that we have known that are good in society. You know, let me ask this question, and I would want to ask this when this bill comes to the floor of the House. Lower the consent age to 16, but mirror the consequences and make sense of it. This is what I mean. When you're saying you want to lower that consent age to 16, then assume the consequence of saying that the girl can have sex legitimately at 16 means that you're also saying that she can get pregnant and give birth at 16. Then take that further and ask yourself, as a father and as somebody who lives in this world, what can a 16-year-old girl in this country do for herself when she has mothered a child? You're saying that you're making a legislation to allow your daughter to go and get pregnant legally, give birth, and come back to your wife to make her the mother of that child. That's what you're saying. It's decaying society, and we must speak against it. You see, this populist laws that we try to make so that we can look like we are advancing in thinking and whatever have brought our society to its knees.
So you're totally against
absolutely. I mean, let's be serious. We must be serious people, and somebody must stand up and say that it's not just enough to look savvy. It's not just enough to look like you are propagating rights for girls or you are and you are defending them. Go further and be real. In the real world, how does it work? How many girls do we have right now? You know, let me tell you a very sad case, an extremely sad case. A friend of mine traveled sometimes and left in his house a relative, a young boy of about 18 with his daughter of about 12 years. Then they go and they think that our children are... Then after they go away, they come back, then they send the young girl to school after that. Then can you imagine, the parent is called to school of a 12-year-old girl and told, we are suspecting there could be a problem. Can you imagine the trauma of that parent after that time being told at school that they have discovered that the girl is pregnant at 12 years of age, made pregnant by a relative of 18 years. I mean, can you imagine?
Okay.
You know, so let's as legislators, I want to stand firm and say that we should completely speak against this. It is going to bring down our society. It is going to destroy our youth. Do you know what? I'm not here to make confessions, but in my time and age, having sex, even for us as men, as boys, myself, I finished high school without knowing what sex is about. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I mean, and we are here, and you're able to uphold those values. What are we telling our children when we know that is not what we have done ourselves?
Yes,
we can't live on the edge. In fact, we should take it higher to a level whereby, you know, if a girl is 20, she is employable. she has gone through her education, she can then at that time consent, give birth to a child, she can take care of that child.
Of course, it makes for very emotive debate, and I watched the debate on live TV as it went on the National Assembly. I think it was on Tuesday this week when Parliament resumed, and it was very emotive, and I'm sure this bill, because you could still continue with it, and it will move to the Senate, it will just be interesting to see how that debate progresses. We now take a short break. Chef Ali is in the house and is cooking up breakfast as always. Let's move to that section of the studio. We'll be back to discuss a lot more very interesting headlines. There's another one just as interesting as this one.